Why talk about this story is another story that comes to my mind about, as I told you, earlier, my parents are quite well known. They had a wide range of friends. And one of those friends was a gentleman called A.M. Arunachalam, who was the chairman, as I mentioned to you earlier, who gave me a reference letter when I joined architecture. Yes. Was a good friend of my father. Now, his advice to me just after I got married was, he asked me what I wanted to do. He knew I was working in Colombo. So he said, what is it that you want to do? So I said, I have the option of coming back to Chennai to practice, or Madras to practice, or go to Australia to do my master's in the University of New South Wales. He vehemently said, don't come to Madras, go abroad, stay abroad, and do your master's. It's far better. Now, after having decided that I'm going to start practicing my own, I didn't have the guts to go meet this gentleman. It so happened that my brother bumped into him somewhere and he asked my brother, what is it that Venkat is doing? To which my brother said he's started practice on his own. And the man immediately started fuming. In his own words, he very clearly said, நான் தான் அவனை இங்கே வரக்கூடாதுன்னு சொன்னேனே, ஏன் இங்கே வந்தான் அவன்? நான் தான் அவனை வெளிநாட்டில் படின்னு சொல்லேனே, எதுக்கு இங்கே வந்து ப்ராக்டிஸ் ஆரம்பித்தான்? Anyway, it is all right, ask him to come and meet me and let me also talk to him. So my brother told me this and I went and fixed up an appointment and went and met him. Yeah. I was shit scared as to what he's going to say. Because here this man had told me not to come back, but I said, okay, whatever, let what has to happen, let it happen. He was very nice enough to say that, listen, I can't promise you anything, but give me 5 copies of your curriculum. I'll circulate it to my group companies. If there is any opening, if they want an architect anyway, they'll call you. Luck. I ended up getting a call from Tube Investments because they had a nice piece of land in Archbishop Matthias Avenue and they wanted row houses to be done. So luckily, the person there, one of the family members, incidentally was also my eldest brother's classmate in PSI school. So when he read the name and when he went into the CV, he said, okay, we know the family, so why don't we give him a chance? So I was called and the brief was given. This is a man, no other than a gentleman called Mr. M.B. Subaya, who's one of the most respected industrialists of Chennai today. So I was given the brief, but what was not told to me in the brief was that they had a problem with the land. In those years, there was something called an urban land ceiling. And if you had excess land, you had to surrender to the government. This piece of land had that little bit of a problem. Those years, the responsibility of getting a municipal sanction rested with the architect. It's only now that you have liaison agents and things like that. Those years, you had to do everything yourself. So it was not only a question of just designing. To get it off the ground, you had to make sure you get the sanction. So the experience of having worked with Bharat earlier, of knowing how things are done, also taught you that this is the way you go about it. So I approached the corporation and, told the corporation that this is where it is. I never spoke about the problem, saying that it's an ULC. But I also knew that, I did a little bit of spade work and looked at the memorandum of understanding of the company, where it was basically a trading company. And a trading company had more chances of coming under the ULC than a manufacturing company. But in that memorandum, it is clearly said that that particular company could get into manufacturing at any point of time. So I used that as a loophole to say that even though this land there is a ULC problem, the fact that they could get into manufacturing any time is deemed that they could be a manufacturing company. So I made sure that using the gift of the gab and the smartness, somehow I managed to get the sanction. So the question of survival is just not restricted to architecture. right? But that job, you learned much more about. You learned another way to learn is one is having worked with Bawa, one with Bharat, etc. But where your knowledge comes is learning from the workman. If you go and stand at site and see how a workman does his masonry, you will understand why he uses that proportion for mixing the sand and cement to get the mortar. You ask questions. As far as he is concerned, he will treat you, because you're educated, he will think it's a big thing for him to teach you. So he goes out of his way to teach you. Right? Similarly, talking to carpenters, what does an architect know as to what a dovetail joint is? It's never taught to you. All this is never taught to you. This is what you see when somebody makes something with their own hands. Do you learn how things are made? So when you get a job, the fact that you stand there and learn these things. I had nothing else. Morning was Bharat, afternoon was this job. And I learned everything there. But talking of this Tube Investments, this particular job that I did, this is in a road called the Archbishop Avenue. Very prominent road, right behind Madras Club. The location makes a difference. It makes people more aware of what's coming, that too in such a prominent location. So not only must you have the luck to get the job, you must be lucky enough to get it in a prominent location where it's noticed. So doing this house, those 3 row houses in Archbishop Avenue, again the teachings of Bawa came, the practicality of Bharat came, and the learning curve of going and standing at site came. I've always by habit been a very early person. I like to get out of and get things done as soon as I can. So every day at about 8 o'clock sharp, before going to Bharat's office, I used to go to this Archbishop Avenue site. And I used to go there every day at the same time, 8:05. Suddenly, one of those days, when I was going at that time, somebody stopped me on Archbishop Avenue and said hi. It happened to be an old acquaintance called T.T. Raghu, who was actually T.T. Krishnamachari's grandson.
Yeah, from the TTK group.
And he said, whenever you have time, he was just chatting with me and he said, whenever you have time, why don't you drop in? I want to just see you. So I went and saw him. And he said, I've been seeing you every day at exactly between 8 and 8:05, going past in a motorcycle. And I've been seeing the progress of work at site. I want to build a house and I want you to design it for me. Because I like what I see coming up. I like fresh ideas. And number 2, you seem very committed and hardworking. So I want to make sure that you're the guy who designs my house. Great break.
That's a huge break.
Fantastic break. So I'm saying, as I said, going back to what I said, if you're given one chance, never miss it. Make the best of it.
And it was simply your discipline of going to site and monitoring your project that impressed someone.
I really wish today's architects learn all that the hard way of saying that, I need to go to site more often. I need to spend time at site, because it's one thing to sketch and do a drawing, but it's a completely different ballgame to make sure it's built the way you've drawn it. And unless you're there and spend time at every stage, you will miss out on a lot of things that you actually conceived.